Let's embark on the Ark Republic to hear current news that's published. More than gossip and chatter, covering current affairs that matter. We talk issues with professional views, all keeping you in queue. We wanted a higher vibe for these days and times to free the voices and minds, reporting the sign of the times so all can build. Let's shine, yeah.
By any means, and no, I'm not quoting Malcolm X, By Any Means is actually a Paramount Pictures movie slated to be released September 4th. The movie, starring Mark Wahlberg and Yahya Abdul-Mateen, is described as a historical thriller because it is supposed to tell the story of this off-the-grid or non-traditional investigation that took place after a string of murders of civil rights activists and workers in Mississippi in the 1960s. Now, in the movie's trailer, it shows the firebombing of the home and grocery store of civil rights activist and local NAACP leader, Vernon F. Dahmer. And Mr. Dahmer was situated in Hattiesburg, or right outside of Hattiesburg, Mississippi, his family home and farm. Now, the movie is about the investigation that took place after Mr. Dahmer was killed. However, the production has been receiving pushback from most of the Dahmer family, mainly because of its historical inaccuracies and the vantage point from which it was shot. But there are other issues as well about the production that has resulted in several members, including the gentleman I'm speaking to today, to say, hey, Paramount Productions, you need to do better. And I am speaking to Mr. Dennis Dahmer. How are you doing today, Mr. Dahmer?
Doing just fine, ma'am. Glad to be with you.
Thank you so much for taking time out, because I know this is high harvest in Mississippi. For those of you who do not know, my name is Dr. Kaya Nyambi Shivers. I am the founder of Ark Republic, but I'm also the president of Black Farmers Index. I actually went to the Dahmer farm on the Kelly settlement 3 years ago, so I'm very familiar. It's very hot out there.
It is hot and humid.
Hot and humid. Yes, sir. So I want to get to the issues and then we'll swing back and talk about the farm. Mr. Dahmer, could you please tell me, what is your relationship to Vernon Dahmer?
Okay. Vernon F. Dahmer Sr. was my father. He was a local civil rights grassroots organizer, activist in South Mississippi back in the 40s and the 50s. Up through January the 10th, 1966, when our family home was raided by the Klan that I refer to as Cluckers, about 2 o'clock in the morning. And when they attacked us, my daddy engaged in a gun battle with these Klansmen by running through the house and shooting back at them.
Before we get to firebombing, I want the audience to know more about your father, because I think a lot of activists, well, first of all, my father's from Vicksburg, as I told you. So yeah. I know very well about Mississippi's politics from the vantage point of being Black and living in Mississippi. So let's kind of start. How did your father get into civil rights activism in the first place?
Okay, my father was involved in civil rights activities before I was born. And I was born in 1953. My dad got involved because he didn't agree with the way that Black people were being treated under that system. Basically, second-class citizens and worse. Black people were working. They were paying taxes just like everybody else, but they didn't have all the benefits. They couldn't vote. They couldn't use certain public facilities like bathrooms. That was all segregated. They couldn't go to the library. They had white libraries. And so it's just a complete system of separation that Black folks are helping to pay for, but they're not getting the benefit out of it that their white counterparts were. So my dad didn't like that. And he thought the way to change that would be for Black folks to get the right to vote. And once they got the right to vote, we could vote in different types of politicians with different attitudes, and they could start to dismantle that system of segregation that ruled Mississippi at that time.
What was your father's occupation, and how did he use that in order to enfranchise Black folk?
Okay. My dad was a business owner. He owned several different businesses and that he employed people to work in daily. One of those operations was the farming operation that you visited. Back in the 60s, we were primarily cotton farmers. My dad had planted about 200 acres of cotton on land that he owned, or it was owned by immediate family members. We didn't do any sharecropping, okay? We're farming our own land, which is a big difference than sharecropping. So that was one of his businesses. Another one was the timber business. This is the piney woods. A lot of timber in South Mississippi. So my dad was operating logging crews, plus we also owned a sawmill and a planer mill. That's something typically owned by Black people during that time. So we were able to process the trees, cut them into lumber, and then sell the lumber. Cattle. Cattle was another big business for us. Dad probably owned, 150, 200 head of cattle. So we run a big cow herd, okay? Another business that he operated was that country store, the Dahmer Grocery, which was also firebombed the night that the house was. So he was an independent businessman. He was able to speak out on issues like civil rights, voting in particular. A lot of other people supported him, held the same ideas, but they didn't have the economic freedom that he did to speak out. If they spoke out, they could be fired from their jobs, harassed, maybe even ran out of town. All those things happened. So by him being an independent businessman, that gave him some degree of liberty to engage openly in civil rights. So that's who he was in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I want to add, to have that amount of those amount of businesses, that amount of cattle, a sawmill. My grandfather worked in the sawmill in Vicksburg. And so I know exactly what it is. When we went to go look him up, he didn't know how to read or write. So he was one of those individuals who had to mark the X. And so when we went to go look it up, because my grandmother never received benefits, of course, he was nowhere to be found. So, but the story, our family story is that we once owned a family general store, and that was a very lucrative business, to have, especially when you're in the rural, but it also came with a lot of heat, in terms of townspeople, not liking the fact that this Black man has all these land and this business. And on top of that, is talking all this stuff and trying to get other Black people activated. So I'm just trying to, set that tone. I have a couple of questions. Sure. And this is based on some of the research that I did. And I know you being there can give a lot of perspective. The farm, as I found out, was a really critical site for a lot of civil rights activities that took place. Can you please explain or give more insight into that as you understand it?
Well, sure. This building that I'm sitting in behind me here, okay, that I'm in, this is the historic Day Spring School building. This is a school that was started by my ancestors at the end of slavery, okay, for their kids to go to school. And later on, back in the 60s, this building here was actually used to conduct meetings for the Hattiesburg Civil Rights Movement. It was in this rural community of the Kelly settlement, isolated. So this building was an ideal place for them being the activists, to meet, strategize about what they wanted to try and accomplish and how to accomplish it during this Hattiesburg movement. This is also the site where my dad held the Freedom Summer Picnic in about 1964. You can go online and word search Vernon Dahmer Freedom Summer Picnic, and you can pull up a bunch of pictures and descriptions of what went on. So basically, my dad hosted all of the civil rights activists, these young people primarily, that came to Mississippi, Hattiesburg in particular, to participate in what is known as Freedom Summer in 1964. Your listeners can look that up and read about that. So it was used for that. It was used to hold, I talked about meetings, but it was also a location where my dad would meet people who wanted to go and register to vote in Hattiesburg. He would meet them here. They would load up in our car, and he would go to town with them or some of my older brothers. The reason they did that is because, you could face a lot of harassment for just attempting to register to vote, okay? So by them leaving their cars here, local authorities couldn't get their tag numbers and be able to harass them and track them down. But they're going to find you anyway because you filled out an application. They got all the information on that. So if they want to find you, they're going to find you. And they did find people and start to harass them, tell them, hey, you shouldn't be voting, et cetera, et cetera. So the farm was a place where civil rights activities were active. Activists would come here from time to time to meet with my dad to discuss different strategies about what they wanted to do. So it was sort of like an ongoing thing all the time with the activist community showing up here to talk to my dad. Also, it's a place of recreation for them, like that Freedom Summer Picnic. They could do that. We had a big lake. They could come and fish in the lake, swim in the lake, because you got to remember, this is during segregation, so there ain't no swimming pools for black folks, okay? And they restricted in some of the other places they could have went and fished. Certain whites wouldn't allow them on their property. But here, they were welcome to do those kind of things. So that's a little bit of what the farm was used for.
Can you please describe your father as daddy? Who was he to you as daddy?
Yes. My dad was a civil rights activist. Not me, not my sister, and really not my mother. It's pretty much him. He was the one that was involved in the civil rights movement. I knew about it because I'm around it all the time. I don't know all the details of what went on, but I know a lot of it. But to me, he was really dad. He was the guy that showed me and taught me how to work, how to farm that I'm doing today, how to operate a sawmill, how to log, okay? How to run a store like a grocery, how to run a business like a grocery store, how to run cattle herd. I learned all that from him. He was also the guy that I went fishing and hunting with. So I learned those skills from him. But mostly, to me, he was dad. He wasn't the civil rights activist. And he tried to protect his family from some of the things that was going on. Okay. We being my brother, my younger sister and I, we didn't take an active role in terms of what was going on in Hattiesburg, primarily due to our age and our location. We were at that time about 7 miles outside of Hattiesburg, about 5 today. And so we wasn't in Hattiesburg on a regular basis. We were not. We didn't, we only went to town for some specific event, like getting a haircut, or maybe riding to the feed and farm supply store to buy fertilizer, whatever. But it wasn't like we were there. So a lot of the stuff that went on, I found out about it after the fact, because two of the activists, the first two student activists that came to Forest County, SNCC workers, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Hollis and his cousin Curtis, they lived with us in the Kelly settlement. They came at the invitation of my dad, who was the president of the NAACP at that time. That was early 60s, probably like 62, 63, I'm guesstimating somewhere along in there. But to answer your question, he was dad to me. He was the guy that I learned a lot about life from. He's the guy I learned values from, to things like, if you give your word, honor your word. Okay? Things like, you do not have to take advantage of people in your businesses for you to be successful. Okay? That how the public saw you was important. Treat everybody with respect, no matter what their station is in life. Treat them the way you want to be treated if you were a complete stranger. So those are the kind of things that I learned from my dad.
Thank you for sharing those intimate moments and memories of your father. I'm moving to something that you had a front stage center experience in, and I want to acknowledge the trauma and also the grief that has happened around this, because a lot of people talk and they don't act like, sometimes the people who experienced it are still deal with it, something this heavy. We're going to talk about the morning of January 10th, 1966. Where were you? What do you remember? What happened?
Okay. We were attacked early in the morning, probably about 2 a.m. by 2 carloads of these armed Klansmen. And they came there specifically to burn us out and to kill us if they could. That was their mission. That was their directive. What they call it, Project 3, burn him out. Project 4, kill him, kill his family. All right, because they wanted to send a message to Black people that the Klan was still in charge and they could do things and they could still get away with things, because that was the norm in Mississippi. They got away with the killing of the 3 civil rights workers in Philadelphia. None of those individuals were ever prosecuted in a state court of law. None of them. So they got away with it up there. So when these Klansmen start getting out the cars and slamming the doors, that wakes my mother up. She in turn says to my dad, "Vernon, I believe they got us this time." So he jumps up and he grabs his guns. Now, we're an outdoorsman family. We did a lot of hunting. So we got a lot of guns and they all loaded. Okay?
And ready.
And ready. Because my dad understood that if something was to happen, it's going to be us against them, because we're living in a rural community and waiting on somebody else to show up. I hope they show up. Law enforcement probably ain't going to happen. It's going to be you against them. So he jumps up, grabs his guns, They're shooting in the house, shooting the windows out. They're throwing in jugs of gasoline into the house, throwing torches in behind it. So my dad is running through those flames, shooting back from different doors and windows at these Klansmen who are outside shooting in the house, and also at the same time shooting up the store and setting the store on fire on that property. So my dad fights this gun battle with them.
So it's your father, the one man,
One
in a
man,
shootout with a 2-car load full of Klansmen.
at least 6 to 8 of them were in the yard.
Mhm.
Okay. And these Klansmen had did what they call dry runs, where they had actually practiced the attack of what they were going to do. So they come there knowing that, hey, this is a guy who's going to stand his ground. He's not going to take off running. He's going to stand his ground, and he's going to fight, and he's going to protect his family. They knew that about him, okay? So they knew that they were going to be in for a fight. But by my dad running from different windows, doors, shooting back, they thought it was more than one person shooting at them. And they lost their nerve. And when they lost their nerve, one of the Klansmen turned their headlights on in one of the cars, something he wasn't supposed to do. And the other Klansmen saw it, and they saw all the gunfire, and they were thinking that finally the FBI had caught up with them and had ambushed them while they were trying to do this raid. So they get nervous. So they start shooting at one another. They shooting at one another in the yard. And my dad is shooting at them. And all this transpired. I don't believe they were there 5 minutes. I really don't. One of them drops his pistol in the yard. So when the FBI gets there the next day, starts the investigation, they find all kind of evidence. One of the things they found was this pistol. And they were able to trace that pistol back to that Klansman. The car, one of the cars was shot up so bad between the exchange of gunfire between my dad and them. They had to abandon the car about 3 to 4 miles up Monroe Road from where we live. FBI recovered that car. So right from the start, the FBI knew who had did this. They knew it was cluckers that did it. They just didn't know which ones. And from what I was told by a news reporter who was there in the FBI makeshift offices they set up in the Holiday Inn when they came to Hattiesburg, they didn't have anything to do with the local law enforcement people because they knew a lot of them were probably sympathetic to the Klan, if not in the Klan. So they operated independently of them. So you have to understand that time. This is after the Philadelphia killings. So the FBI is in Mississippi in force. They have FBI agents living in every city in Mississippi of any size. So the town north of us is Law, Mississippi, where these Klansmen are from. There was a FBI agent lived there who had developed a network of informants inside the Klan. So they knew who was in the Klan. They knew what what position they had held. They knew everything about them. So supposedly, from what I was told, that FBI agent comes in probably in 3 or 4 days after the attack, sits down and writes out a list of names that he had gotten from his informants, saying, hey, these are the ones that did the attack right here. Then, not long after that, the one who dropped his gun in the yard traced back to him. The FBI looking for him. He know it. He's on the run out in Texas, Louisiana. he decides to turn himself in and confess. So the FBI knew who did it. So
what did the FBI do with the information? Mm-hmm.
They started their investigation directly at those individuals.
Okay.
They would go and confront them. Okay, because you have to understand, the FBI knew who a lot of these Klansmen were ahead of time, and they would go and confront them. And these Klansmen, oh, I'm not in the Klan. I don't know anything about that. And these FBI agents look at them like, who do you think you're talking to? We know exactly who you are. And we actually know what went on in your meetings, okay? Through our informant network. So they started to investigate them heavily. And the FBI already had the case made against them. But what the FBI has also been assigned is the task of breaking the back of this Klan and destroying the Klan in Mississippi. This is the same Klan organization that had killed the 3 civil rights workers in Philadelphia, Mississippi, through some of their groups based out of out of Meridian, Mississippi, and Philadelphia, Mississippi. The Klan was structured where they had these different groups that they call claverns. All right. And so in a place like Jones County, they probably had 3 or 4 claverns, these different groups of Klansmen who supposedly didn't know the other ones, except for the ones in their group. Okay. But they all ran by the head of the Klan and his organization that was based in Laurel, Mississippi. So my dad's murder gave the FBI what they were looking for. They were looking for a case, a way to tie all of their leadership into a crime. And their hands were all over this one. So they prosecuted him, arrested him, eventually prosecuted about half of them. They arrested about 14 to 16 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they only prosecuted about 8 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Out of that 6 or 8, got about 3 convictions.
That's it.
That's it.
And when did this happen? Did this happen shortly after the investigation took place? Because I know that there was a reopening in the 1990s. So was this did this arrest take place these convictions take place in the 60s?
Yes.
Okay.
This is taking place. I'm saying trials. I'm guesstimating. I have to go back and actually look at it. I think the trials probably started 6 months after the crime.
Okay.
Is when they actually started prosecuting them. Okay. But they had been indicted before then. Okay.
Okay.
And
for other crimes.
No, they indicted for my dad's murder.
For your dad's murder. Okay. Okay. So
what they did there. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. So now I'm going to insert the movie By Any Means. And it's really interesting. You said when you were growing up, your father taught you this code of ethics and morals about how you treat people, how you do business.
Right.
And it's really interesting you said that, because I think that that's a really strong transition into this movie By Any Means. Based on what you understand about the movie, what is the issue that you have with the movie, or your family, what the family's issue is?
Here's the problem. First of all, they base it up on my dad's murder. And then they don't tell the story and the truth about that. They take one small minor element, this mobster character, and They embellish his role, turn him into a hero where he actually solves the murder. Then they start to just create characters and events. They create this black FBI agent. No black FBI agents in 1966 Mississippi. I talked to a lot of a lot of FBI agents after my dad's murder. I never saw a black one. Okay? So they create that character. Then supposedly, according to their storyline, the mobster guy and the black FBI agent solved the murder. And I just told you how the murder was solved based upon the evidence and the confession of this one individual who testified in all the trials, by the way. Mafia guy never testified in any trials. Okay? Never did. My family didn't even know he existed until the 80s.
So Mr. Dahmer, for those who are listening, I want to make sure they understand the movie By Any Means Necessary, starring Mark Wahlberg. Wahlberg's character is this mafia guy that you're talking about.
Right.
So Wahlberg is supposed to be this former mafia, operator who actually was an informant, turned an FBI informant, right? Up in New York.
In New York, he was a capo in one of those mob families, and he was the killer for him. And it's my understanding that he ran afoul of law enforcement, so he flips and testifies on a bunch of his mafioso family members, and sent a bunch of them to prison. So they out to get him, and the FBI puts him in their protection program or whatever to keep him alive. He becomes an asset that they can use to do things that they can't do. And he was brought into this case to interrogate a couple of these people that the FBI knew that was involved in my dad's murder. They already knew that. Okay. So why are they bringing this guy down here when the FBI has already got a case made? First of all, I believe it goes back to what part of the mission of what the FBI was supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be destroying this Klan in Mississippi. So these Klansmen are an arrogant bunch. They think they're tough guys. You know, we do what we want to do down here. Law enforcement don't do anything to us. So I believe they brought this Scorpio character in here, Scorpio, to just show these Klansmen, you ain't no tough guy.
So for those who are not historical folks, the president at the time is Kennedy.
Kennedy, right.
Okay. The FBI director is Hoover. Right. And I thought it was really interesting how they bring this, ex-mafia person down, and the mafia is supposedly intertwined into allegedly, right, Kennedy's untimely death. I want to get to this Scarpa character. Was he successful at whatever it was that he was supposed to do, based on what you know?
What I know, what I've been told, I believe he did put the fear of God into these Klansmen, okay? Because he could do things the FBI couldn't do. And I think the word probably got around amongst them Klansmen. You don't want to meet this guy. It can go really bad for you.
Okay, okay.
And
So he was effective at least at doing this, but the movie by any means, your
right,
dispute is that it over exaggerated exactly what he did.
what he did, and he's not a hero. He's not. He's a bad guy who's dealing with some bad people. But did that solve the murder of my dad? No, it did not. But when you put this kind of false narrative out there, people that go see a movie, they're going to believe that. They're going to believe that this is what actually happened. And so what they have done, these Hollywood folks, they've turned him into a white savior trope type character. Okay? Where he shows up and saves the day for these black folks, and these local law enforcement people, FBI, they can't do anything. So Scarpia and the black FBI agent decide that they're gonna go on a vigilante style justice campaign for the Dahmer family. So you got those two going around killing Klansmen. They kill a white police officer. None of this stuff happened. None of that happened. But you're putting this narrative out there, and it has validity because when you look back and say, well, Vernon Dahmer was killed by the Klan. And maybe this is what happened. No, it didn't. So what they are doing, they are denigrating the legacy of my dad to make money by using their creative license or whatever they want to call it to create this fictitious storyline that I'm sure is probably entertaining, but it's not fact. So they're standing on the grave of my dad to enrich themselves.
And it's
All
not
of them.
entertainment, it's not entertainment for your family. It's lived trauma
No,
too, you know?
no, it's not. It's not when you're telling lies about my dad. One of the things I want your audience to understand about how my family feels about the legacy of Vernon Dahmer. We're very protective of that. Anywhere you see anything about him, whether it be a plaque or a statue down at the courthouse or in the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum, my family has an agreement with all those folks that we're going to approve any text you put up and any images that you put up to make sure you're telling the truth about who Vernon Dahmer was,
So
okay, and what he stood for.
Mr. Dahmer, how does your father's story get into this and reconfigured? How did that permission go? And I'm asking personally what happened, but I want you to know you're not the only family in terms of Hollywood approaches them, asks the story, or however it happened for you. And then when they see the final production, it is far from what the truth is. So
Right, right.
how if you're protective, how did this happen to your family?
Well, first of all, the first contact was to me by this executive producer, Alex Lobovici with Hammerstone Studios. He calls me up out the blue about 3 years ago, telling me, "Oh, we're going to make this movie about your dad, and we're going to treat him well, and it's going to be a good movie." And then he goes on and said, "This guy Scarpia solved your dad's murder." And then he asked me, "Do I know who he is?" So I told him, "Why don't you tell me? I know who Scarpia is." So he regurgitates, I guess, what he read in his book, but it's definitely their script, storyline that makes him out to be a hero. And so I listened to him and I had some questions. He couldn't answer none of them. So I told Alex, I said, Alex, why don't you send me some links to where your movie project is written up in the trade publication for the movie industry so I can read about it. Because I'm not backing him on anything, okay? He tells me I'm going to have my assistant to do that. I never got anything. I never heard from him again. It was then, I believe, they started to look for other ways to get what they really wanted, which was a signed life rights agreement release. And he finds this outlier sister of mine. He's gullible. And she starts to work with him behind the scenes, not telling me anything. I'm sure they probably had told her, hey, we tried your brother and he wasn't receptive at all. You know, no, I'm not. Okay. And she even brings him to the house to meet my mother, who at that time was probably 99 or 100 years old. Okay.
Is your mother still alive, sir?
Yeah, she's 101.
Wow.
Okay, she's still here. And so this director, this co-producer, two black guys show up. My mother think they're gonna actually make this movie about Vernon Dahmer. Okay, but they knowing all along what their script says. Okay, and I believe they're misleading her, but they purposely leaving me out the discussion. Now, about 8 months ago, I find out what these people are up to. They're actually making this movie, and I get a call and I trace it back, and it's these same people. They find out I'm involved again. Then they start trying to recruit me. So they actually send me the script. They do. I look at the script. I don't like it at all because you're using my dad's murder to legitimize all the stuff that we just talked about. Okay? And that's not right. My mother looks at the script. She don't like it. The sister, I call her and asked her, has she read the script? Her response was no. And he read the script. I sent her the script. I don't know if she's read it to this date. Okay? But they fly her over to the movie production set in Georgia when they're filming scenes about my dad at the beginning of the movie. She takes pictures with the actors and stuff, signs a life rights agreement at some point. My mom and I never signed it. So those movie guys, from the way they look at it, hey, we got one of you to sign it and that's good enough. And we can use that agreement to do whatever we want to do. And talking with this executive producer, Alex, when I finally met him face to face 2 months ago, back in June, he tells me he's had this script for like 8 or 9 years. So he's known exactly what he wanted to do. And they went through some underhanded methods to get what they wanted, signed life rights agreement from at least one of us, and they believe they are covered legally, that there's nothing we can do about it. So my family, after they meet Alex, go ahead.
Can I ask a question? I think the guy's name is Lebovici or something like that. Alex Lebovici, something like that.
Hammerstone.
Was there any compensation?
Okay, after we meet him at this birthday party, he shows up for my mother. And he shows up. Okay. He had taken pictures last year with her at the party, and I didn't know who he was. and what he was up to then. And he posts these pictures online like he has this loving relationship with the Dahmer family and all this crap. So after I meet him, having introduced himself to all my nephews and nieces there, they open up a chat dialogue with him after that meeting to try and get a prologue put in this movie up front about who Vernon Dahmer really was. Okay? So that chat meeting doesn't go well. Alex rejects the prologue. Don't want to put it in there. And my nieces and nephews are questioning him, why not? I think I sent you a copy of it. Okay,
I do.
and that,
I have it.
You know, just wouldn't do it. He didn't want to put anything in there that might, in my opinion, not show his storyline the way he wants it to be seen, as credible, could have happened, allegedly, all this kind of crap. Okay, so he rejects it outright, and the discussion gets a little heated. Alex basically tells my family members, and I have it in writing, if you don't like what I'm doing, go hire you a lawyer. That's what he tells them. Okay, so his true colors start coming out. All right, I'm going to do what I want to do. I got a signed agreement that I believe gives me the right to do that. I asked him, did he pay my sister? He said, no. Didn't pay her anything. All right. But he paid Scarpia family members because they were brought on as consultants.
Get out of here.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So that's how these folks are operating. And at this particular point, that's why I'm doing these interviews, because we want to get the word out to the movie-going public to know exactly what's going on with this movie, to know that we're not in support of it, to know that we ain't making one dime out of it, okay? And if you want to support the Dahmer family, there's a couple of things you can do.
Here's the
First
call
thing
to
they can
action.
do-
Here's the call to action.
Yeah, because we need to send a message to these Hollywood people that, we're tired of these white savior trope movies where you create all this fiction and create a white hero. And that's what they're doing with this Scarpia guy. Making him this white hero going to come in and just save the day for these black folks who can't seem to do nothing and helpless and all this kind of crap. All right. They've done this in other movies. They done it in Mississippi Burning. They did it in The Ghost of Mississippi. Okay. About other civil rights killings here. And here they come again. Same trope. We're going to do it again. All right. So what I need, what the Dahmer family needs, the movie-going public and everybody to do a word search for Action Network Paramount boycott. Action Network Paramount boycott. That'll pull up an online petition with part of the disclaimer in it. Not the complete disclaimer, but you can get enough of what's being said with what's there. Sign that petition. Recirculate that petition to your friends. Ask them to sign it. Ask them to send it to their friends and sign it. To see how many signatures we can get on it. To send to Alex and his company, Hammerstone Studios, and Paramount who's doing the release on this thing through their distribution network to know that these white savior trope movies are morally wrong and they're repulsive, especially when you're doing one based upon a real life civil rights icon who literally fought and died for black folks to have the rights to vote. I'm talking about my daddy, Vernon F. Dahmer Sr. Okay? We need the people who go to the movies, as well as the general public, to do that. And then those who actually go and buy tickets, they can make a decision about what they want to do with their money. If they want to spend it on this movie or not. I can tell you this for a fact. They're not going to make not one dime off of me. I'm not buying no tickets. They can't even give me free tickets. They tried to invite me out to this premiere coming up on September the 1st in California, out there in Los Angeles. I'm not going. I'm not going. I'm not going to give any credibility to what you're doing by me showing up, by my presence just being there. I'm not giving you any credibility because I'm in opposition to what you're doing. And I want the movie going public to understand this. And then they can make their own decisions whether or not they want to continue to support these kind of movies or help us send a message to Hollywood to say, enough of the white savior trope stuff. Okay? Enough of that. Then the next thing, all these people involved, the black actors, black director, co-producers, black script writers, black production people, whoever that had a hand in making this movie, that made money off it and probably gonna make more, some of them, once the box office revenues start coming in. Some of them, I'm sure, probably have deals to make even more. They could join the Dahmer family in requesting that Alex, Hammerstone Studios, and Paramount Pictures to include the disclaimer as written by the Dahmer family up front before you even run the movie. Put it in big enough letters, leave it up long enough for people to read it. It ain't no more than about 3 or 4 paragraphs. Okay, that's all that's there. And it basically says that Vernon Dahmer was a real person who lived and fought for black folks to have the right to vote. It says that this movie covers one very minor incident that did not impact the outcome of any trials because Scarpia hadn't testified. Scarpia hadn't found out anything that the FBI didn't already know. Okay? But just as significantly, it says, if the movie public want to really do something to honor Vernon Dahmer, go register and vote. And vote Democratic. I'm a proud Democrat. I want everybody to know that. And if you got issues with that, we can talk about it on my Facebook page. Dennis Dahmer, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Okay? You're welcome to come post whatever you want to over there, and I'll respond to it. But I'm a proud Democrat. And I know who's working on our behalf in 2026. And it ain't the folks that's in the White House and his regime. It ain't them. So if people want to honor Vernon Dahmer, you go register and you get ready to vote in November so we can start to put America back on the course where everybody is treated with respect, which is one of the things that my daddy was about. You treat people with respect. You work with people. You don't work them over. You work with them, okay? And this administration is working people over, and black folks is right at the top of that list. And anybody that don't know that today, you are poorly informed. You refuse to look at what's going on. Okay? Or maybe you got some other motive. Maybe you've been financially rewarded to say some of the things that's being said in social media by Black folks. Black
Miss,
folks I'm talking about.
Mr. Dahmer,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
have a question.
Sure.
You actually, what you just said is a good segue into this question. Right now in Mississippi, there's a high profile case of Nolan Wells, the
Mm,
young black
right.
boy, a young black man,
Yeah.
whose body
Yeah.
was discovered. How does
Mhm.
what your family is doing, how does that resonate with the Nolan Wells case? Can you give me some insight, sir?
Yeah. Back to this voting thing. The last governor's race in Mississippi, it was won by the Republican by 27,000 votes. That's all. 27,000 votes, and he became governor. If just the registered Black folks in Mississippi had went and voted, we'd have had a Democratic governor. If we go and vote in the numbers that we can in Mississippi, and Mississippi is not the only state with this voter apathy problem. It's all across America, everywhere. Okay? Mississippi is 40% Black or more. If we were going to the polls in Mississippi the way we could, better than we did when Obama ran, and with that 25% white crossover vote that's going to vote with us, we'd had a Democratic governor. We'd had a Democratic lieutenant governor, a Democratic attorneys general, and Democrat everything else at the state level. And if we'd have had that type of administration at the top versus what we have, I believe the information would be much more free flowing about what happened to that young man. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that somebody did something to him. We don't know. We don't know. But if the information was free flowing, a lot of these questions would have been answered. There's some serious questions around what happened to this young man. Okay, now, tell you some people that don't know a lot about Mississippi, just say geography wise. That Horn Island, it's about 10 miles off the coast, Mississippi Gulf Coast. It's one of a bunch of barrier islands down there. You typically don't find a lot of Black folks out there because they ain't got the boats to get out there. Okay? If you look at the pictures from what went on that day, there are hundreds, thousands of people out there. Okay? You don't see that many Black folks out there. So you're going to tell me that a young Black fella like Nolan didn't stand out. You can't see him. Yeah. You can see him. Okay? So I believe somebody knows something that the public needs to know. And if we'd have had a Democratic administration at the top, attorneys general, all right, who's over this state highway patrol, I believe the commissioner and all of them, and a governor, you know, who's over these medical examiners, all of that, I believe a lot more would be known and released to the public about autopsy reports, what was found. Hell, I bet if we had a Democratic governor, whatever the finding was, if he came back and said, well, it's inconclusive, or we believe it was accidental drowning. Well, I believe if you had a Democratic governor, his next statement would have been, I tell you what, we're going to open these reports up to be reviewed by an independent panel, board certified forensic pathologists. You can check our work, see what you come up with. We're not going to hold back body parts. Okay? It's all going to be available. And whoever did the autopsy for the Wells family, I think they should have access to that. And that, information that's free-flowing and documented can answer a lot of questions.
It's good to have somebody on the ground from a local perspective to let us know what happens, and have the civil rights lineage that you have. I'm going to be sure to put all the links up in terms of how to protest, the petition that you have going on, and whatever it is that you have. I want to end very briefly, because I have gone onto the Kelly settlement, on to the farm, in Mr. Dahmer's second spring of career. He went back to his roots, and does farming that he calls nostalgia farming. But when I was there, and correct me if I'm wrong, he is open to teach and show people how to farm. He is in need of interns. He's also in need of people to help. So along with voting, register to vote, along with petitioning, please schedule a tour on the farm. Please bring business to the farm to also honor the legacy as well. And you will get an excellent tour that gives you deeper insight. My father is from Mississippi, and I remember I was on this panel, and there was another brother who was actually from Mississippi. And he said something like, I really get tired of people thinking that all things that are hellish come from Mississippi, and that's not true. You, Mr. Dahmer, your father, Mr. Dahmer, my dad, are a testament that there are some strong, good brothers, Black men coming out of Mississippi doing good work.
Absolutely. And let me just say this, because right now, surrounding this Nolan Wells case, I see a lot of Black folks posting things like, all the Black folks in Mississippi need to leave. I would never go down there. That place is not where we need to be. Well, this is what I would say to all of them. I don't know of any paradise anywhere in America for Black folks. Okay? Some places are probably better than others. And there's a lot of patronizing that goes on in these Southern cultures. People smiling at you all the time and asking you how you're doing and all this. There's a lot of patronization. So what I would say to folks, you need to move to Mississippi, okay? We're already at 40% of the population. We get a lot of folks coming in here, and we have quite a few retirees. They come back, left, went away to some northern city, West Coast, they moved back. And we have a lot of other people that just move into the state. Move in, you can find you some land, or find you a place in the city, wherever. But we get those numbers on up, we're going to be able to do things politically in Mississippi that you can't do in states where you only make up 20% of the population, 10, 15% of the population. But here, we will be able to elect people, and we'll be able to change things, starting with the state government. And this legislature is going to redistrict next year. And they're going to knock out every Black elected official that they can. All right? But we get enough of us in this state registered, going to the poll, we're going to be able to change a lot of that. we can redraw some districts when we get the power, and we can get more of us in the legislature, and we can start to put some of those seats back in and keep them the way we want them. So that's a thought for folks. I know it's a lot of frustration around this thing. I'm mad, I'm pissed off. But there are a lot of questions that need to be answered, and they're not being answered. And I want to see some real answers that are validated by what the evidence says. Okay?
Now,
And
sir, you are an example of what the young folks say, 10 toes down. You're not moving, you're not leaving, you're staying,
no,
and you're fighting. Thank you so much for stopping by and explaining to you know the folk who rock with Black Farmers Index and Ark Republic what is going on. I look forward. I want to talk about some more farming later, but for now we have work to do.
yeah.
Last say is always for my guests, sir. What is the last thing you want us to know before we sign out?
Well, know what I just said about this movie. Sign that online petition boycott. Decide if you want to spend money on it or not. Know that the Dahmer family ain't getting nothing out of this. We ain't. He's just being exploited. Okay? And if you really want to honor my dad and his legacy, go register and vote. If you already registered and you hadn't voted in a while, you need to check and make sure your name is still on the active voter rolls and they hadn't been purged, because these southern states are putting these laws in, like this shield law in Mississippi, to purge people off the voting list and to make it difficult for you to get back on there in some instances. So you need to check now. You need to know what your status is before you get to that poll. And if you get to the poll and there's some kind of discrepancy, don't get pissed off and leave. Vote by affidavit. Say, I'll just vote by affidavit and we'll look into this later. Okay? But we need to show up.
That's right. Get that provisional vote in. Yes, sir.
Yeah, do that. Don't get mad and walk out. We know the shenanigans. We know what they're up to. They want you to get mad and leave. Don't do that. Vote, even if it's provisional. Then leave and say, hey, we're gonna rectify this situation. Okay? And that's the attitude we need to have. And I tell people this, and I'm gonna shut up after this. And a lot of people, they don't see no value and say, ain't nothing gonna change. It's all gonna be the same, all that. The Democrats ain't this, the Republicans ain't that, da. Well, there is a difference. And you need to know which party is looking more out for you today in 2026. Not the 1800s, not the 1900s up to about 1963, 64. We're talking about 2026, where you need to be. And then look at it like this. If you got kids, you got grandkids, say, hey, I'm going to vote for them. I'm going to vote for other folks' kids. I'm going to vote for the kids that ain't never been born yet, to make sure that they have a better world and not have to go through the type stuff that we're going through right now, where Black folks are literally being erased from history, okay, and being erased as individuals from this society, okay? So that's the reason why to go vote for the future generations. So at least I did that. And remember this, on election day, you just as important and just as powerful as whoever it is with a whole bunch of money. They can have billions of dollars that they can spend to influence other folks. But on election day, you can only vote one time, just like you. Okay?
That's
So
right. Yes, sir.
All they can do is one time, just like you. And if we show up, we can bring about the change that need to be made in America. Do that in memory of my dad. Do that. And the Dahmer family will really appreciate it.
We are speaking to Dennis Dahmer, big old Creole farm? Or
Big Creole farm.
Big Creole farm, son of civil rights activist Vernon F. Dahmer Sr. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.